controlling everything. And so basically, that's your group of people here. But, you know, Kim, it'd be nice to know about the people that we have joining us today. So perhaps we could launch a poll question here.
Yeah,
and,
it'd be nice. It would be nice to know who's sailing with us, so, or who's sharing the presentation with us today. So I've put the poll up.
Kim, can you also just start the recording, please?
I have.
Post. Okay, thank you.
So folks, if you could please let us know what your experience is with travel. So perhaps you've never been on a bus tour. You've never been on, you've never cruised, but you've been on bus tours. You've been on an ocean cruise, but no river cruises. You've been on a river cruise, but no ocean cruises. Or you've been on both. I myself have been on both. So if you could answer those questions or one of those questions, pick the best one. And we'll see what the results are.
There we go.
We've got quite a few people who have never been on a guided trip, and a lot that have never been on river cruises. So that's great. I'm glad you folks have joined us. And hopefully you'll find the discussion entertaining and thought-provoking. Let's go to the
let's maybe see how many of them have actually been to Europe.
Oh, okay, sure. Next question here. How many times have you been to Europe on vacation? So that doesn't count business trips, or, you know, if you're an international spy and you go there to so you've never been, or perhaps you've been once, 2 to 4 times, or 5 times or more. So lots of exposure to Europe. That's great. So we're looking.
Well, maybe some of these will be of interest to people when we get a chance to cover some of the destinations that you and I both visited. Let's find out what really motivates them to travel.
Sure. So once again, pick the best answer here, all of them, but if you could pick one, what's the most important reason to go to Europe?
Oh, it looks like there's a lot of people that love what I love, which is history. I think a lot of us do travel to Europe because of the incredible history, but I have to say that I do enjoy the cooking and the food as well. So I will stop sharing, and I'll let you get on with your presentation. So let's click to the next slide.
Great. All right, so hopefully everybody's been placed on mute, but if you haven't, in the lower left corner, you can click on it and it'll put a arrow through there.
He's on mute right now.
Questions via the chat function. So if you click or hover over chat, you can ask questions via the chat function.
Our picture comes
up. If you could mute yourself there, Lynn, you might be on in the lower left corner.
Got it.
You can also manage the volume by your device, and that might be important because I'm quite loud, so you might want to dial me down a bit. Apparently I speak quite loudly when I'm on the phone long distance, so this is a significant long distance phone call. Anyways, we certainly appreciate your, let's go to the next slide. So about Merit Travel and Cruise Experts, we are a full service travel agency, and we do all sorts of different travel experiences: adventure travel, hosted trips, cruises, golf, ski, weekend getaways, anything really that you can dream up in terms of exploring our beautiful planet. All of our physical locations are closed right now during the pandemic. However, your consultant is available by phone or email, and they'll assist you with all your travel needs. You can visit our websites as well for more information. We have merittravel.com or cruiseexpertstravel.com as 2 of our websites. We also have more experiences coming soon for those who are interested. There's cycling trips with Exodus Travels, Arctic cruises with Adventure Canada, Iceland and Italy with Colette, and maybe there's more in common with those 2 countries than just the letter I. And we also have Discover Israel through the Ministry of Tourism, another I. So I'm starting to see a trend here. Thanks, Kim. All right. So this is my river cruising experience, and I'm not showing this to kind of brag, well, maybe a little, but I experience. The reason I'm showing this slide is a couple of points about river cruising and travel in general. First of all, river cruising lends itself very well to being part of an extended stay in Europe. Generally, they're 7 nights in length, river cruises. Some are longer, 14, perhaps even up to 21 days, but the majority are 7 nights. So it does lend itself well to doing something before or after. And that's what we tended to do for the first one. We spent 4 nights in Prague prior to going to Budapest. The second one on the Rhone River, we were visiting friends in Montpellier in the south before we went to Arles. Bordeaux, we were in the Loire Valley visiting the chateaus. It's quite beautiful. On the Seine River, we went to Paris for a few days prior to going on the cruise, which went up to Le Havre. There was one exception, and it's also a lesson, and I always advise my clients, especially with cruises, that you want to be in destination prior to the cruise. And I wasn't for that cruise. And of course, something happened. My flight was canceled from Amsterdam to Basel. And instead of arriving in port at 10 a.m. and plenty of time, I got there 10 minutes before the ship sailed, and the ship did sail, so they weren't going to wait for me. So please, if you're planning any cruise experience, whether it's ocean, river, please schedule a day or two in advance in your destination city so that you can view the city as well as, reducing the stress levels of getting to the ship on time. Okay, we'll go next. So I want to thank everybody for joining us this morning or afternoon, depending on where you are, of course. Maybe you have a glass of your favorite Bordeaux or Pilsner next to you. We're going to be talking about the fastest growing segment in the cruise industry, which is river cruising. And Viking is, we're joined today by Kim Lucy from Viking Cruises. Viking's a leader in river cruising with over 80 riverboats sailing worldwide. A few years ago, Viking ventured into ocean cruising. They built 8 ocean vessels that sail around the world. And recently they've announced expedition cruising as well with purpose-built ships. These are going to Antarctic and polar regions, the Arctic and Antarctic, and also the Galapagos. So Viking's motto, they are built for explorers, and you can explore by river, ocean, expedition, and now you can even explore close to home. They're launching cruises through the Great Lakes as well as the Mississippi River. All this growth has been made possible because of their bread and butter product. And today's discussion topic, European river cruising. So the question is, why should you take European river cruise? We'll go back actually, Kim.
Sorry.
So before the internet and before highways, before railways, before ocean explorers crossed the oceans, rivers were used by civilization as their primary mode of transportation of goods. One of the world's greatest empires, the Roman Empire, used the rivers of Europe to expand their reach. So they sent men and materials and expertise out to the far reaches of Europe. And they went along the Rhine, the Danube, the Rhone, and other rivers that crisscross Europe. They came back to Rome with wealth from these regions and allowed the city-state to flourish for centuries, really. And the evidence of the Roman Empire is everywhere. And the river cruise is the best way to see or experience this firsthand. You've got countries named after the conquerors, like Romania along the Danube. Many cities like Cologne, which is literally named the colony, were first established by the Romans. If education is important to you, you can visit Heidelberg or Salamanca. The Italians knew a bit about wine, and so maybe visiting the Rhone River region, or the Rhone River Valley, or Bordeaux, you can get to experience some of their expertise. Arts as well. You've got places like Vienna, which is the home of Mozart. Visual arts like Amsterdam, Paris, St. Petersburg. These are all accessible on river cruises. So really, if you want to see Europe at its finest, a river cruise is the way to see it. In 1992, which isn't very long ago, the Germans completed a canal And this canal joined two rivers, the Main River and the Danube River, which both run east-west. So the canal goes, it bridges the north-south gap between them. It's an engineering feat that the Germans had planned for centuries, but they were never able to complete it until recently because of modern technology. Modern technology allowed them to complete the canal. So the idea was that they wanted to have commerce go all the way from the Black Sea in the east to the North Sea in just outside of Amsterdam, basically. And they were able to accomplish this. And this is really what's, the rationale behind it was to move goods throughout Central Europe, avoiding the Mediterranean, avoiding the Atlantic Ocean, which are, a little bit more dangerous bodies of water. Going through the Central Europe is a lot more pleasant, of course, and a lot easier. But the byproduct of that is creating this wonderful link between the Danube and the Rhine. So you could literally go from Budapest to Amsterdam, which is a 14-day trip. And because of that and the attractiveness of being able to do something like that, tourists have flocked to river cruising ever since. And I was very fortunate enough to do this cruise in 2002, and it does remain one of the highlights of my travel experiences. So the Main-Danube Canal was the key that unlocked the possibilities of river cruising. And our presenter today, Kim Lucy, she's a 30-year veteran of the cruise industry and a passionate traveler herself. Her career started in marine operations with Princess Cruises, and she transitioned to a sales role with some of the major players in the industry. In 2009, she pivoted to Viking River Cruises, and I guess she sensed that her future lied on the river. Rumor has it that the Lorelei along the Rhine River is Kim's evil twin, actually.
Thanks very much.
She is currently the director of national accounts for Viking River Cruises, or for Viking Cruises, sorry. I keep saying river, but they branched into all these other things. Anyways, you'll find Kim that her knowledge and professionalism are unparalleled in the cruise industry. And it's my distinct pleasure to welcome Kim Lucy to our conversation.
Well, thank you very much. What a great introduction. And you've certainly done lots and lots of travel. So we're going to be talking about some of those destinations today. And I'm going to share some of the highlights. Looks like a lot of you are like me, very interested in history. So I'll be touching on a little bit of the background, but Edward got us started really, really well by explaining the background on the canal and the building of the Main-Danube Canal, which really did make the difference in creating the river cruise industry. For a long time, people could only do one-day trips down the Rhine to see the castles, and now they can sail literally from Amsterdam all the way down to the Black Sea coast in Bucharest. So I wanted to start with just a little bit of an intro on river cruising and what makes it a bit different, because I did notice from the polling that many of you have done lots of ocean cruising, and some of you have done a little bit of both. So I am as Edward mentioned, I started in the ocean cruise business, and I've been with Viking for about 11 years, and I really became totally intrigued with it when I went on vacation a few years ago. 2006 actually was my first river cruise, and I did the Danube, and I was a little bit afraid that I wasn't going to like it after being on ocean ships and sailing around the world via ocean. But I have to tell you, I completely fell in love with it. And one of the things that I love the most is that the ships are small. They're 150 to 200 passengers. So people that, maybe cruised back in the 90s and the early 2000s when ships were a lot smaller and things were a lot more intimate. You sailed into the heart of the destination. That's what really, really excited me about river cruising, is I felt like I'd step back in time. So the ships are 150 to 200 passengers. And what I still love about it is that you don't have to pack and unpack every single day. So in a way, those of you that have done coach touring, you know what it's like when they have those 6:30 a.m. wake-up calls and you have to get your luggage out and you have to get going and down to breakfast, and then you spend a few hours on the coach looking at the scenery en route to the destination. Whereas on a river cruise, you don't have to do that. You're unpacked, you can relax, you step off, you've got that beautiful scenery wrapped around you, and you don't have to worry about packing and unpacking each morning. You also have, it's leisurely and casual. So there's no jackets and ties, no ball gowns, no cocktail dresses. It's a much more relaxed experience, and we don't travel at high speeds. 150, we travel between 8 and 12 knots. So it's a leisurely pace. We spend lots and lots of time in the port of call because it really is about it being immersed in that destination. And you have this beautiful scenery wrapped around you. This is another thing that I love. I love the fact that you've got those castles and those little medieval villages and fields of lavender in France to really, really absorb and feel immersed in that destination. And here you can see the beautiful Rhine River. This is the Middle Rhine, which is a World UNESCO Heritage Site. And there are 40 castles that dot the hillsides and the vineyards and the islands of the Rhine. And just around that corner is the Lorelei that Edward was talking about and telling you that my evil twin was luring sailors to their death on the rocks. It isn't actually me, but I do have a German background, so who knows? Maybe back there in the history there's something. But the scenery is always changing. So if you've not cruised on a river before, and even ocean cruising, you don't like to be for long distances at sea, river is a nice place to start. The other great thing about rivers is the water's flat. You don't have to worry about movement because these are slow flowing and flat sailing. And our ships are green technology. They're hybrid engines with low vibration. So I always find that when I'm traveling, particularly at night, if I can't see the lights moving past, it's really hard to tell if the ship is moving. Now, you do have to be aware that water levels in Europe do fluctuate. They do fluctuate between centimeters and feet. So we are equipped to handle that at Viking with the larger fleet that Edward mentioned. Sorry, a moment there. And we actually have the ability to move guests from identical ships to identical ships. So we are very well equipped after our long history to be able to handle that. So you don't have to worry, but you do, as I always say to people, you have to be able to go with the flow on the rivers, literally. And with travel, you always have to expect the unexpected and be prepared for an adventure. The other thing I love about river cruising is the smallness. They are able to dock right in the heart of the destination. And here you can see our guests sitting on the bow of the ship in Budapest and very close to the Parliament buildings. You literally step off and everything is at your fingertips. All of the boutiques and the restaurants and the sites are all very close walking distance. And that's one of the big advantages over big ocean cruises nowadays. And the other thing I love is that the ships is that it's virtually all inclusive. I don't know about you guys, but I've traveled a lot on ocean ships. And one of the things that I always hate is that morning at the end of the cruise when I open the door and they post the ransom note. And you think, oh my God, I spent all this money and I didn't even realize. Sometimes it's cost me more to get off than it did to get on because of all the extras. So one of the things with river cruising is you don't have those surprises. Now at Viking, we are catering to the explorer in you. We know that our guests love that art, that history, the culture, the music. They're interested in meeting people, and they're very much adventurers in their soul. And so we have created destination-focused itineraries that are culturally enriching, and we've spent time really looking at what people are interested in building those experiences for you. We do travel all over the world, so if you're interested, you can visit 7 continents, 95 countries, 403 ports of call. We sail across 5 oceans, along 20 rivers, and we also explore 5 Great Lakes. Now, just a bit about Viking. Many of you have probably seen our commercials and maybe heard a little bit about us. We work closely with PBS and particularly with Downton Abbey as a sponsor, but we've been in business since 1997. That's almost 23 years. And we have been in the river industry with a total of just under 80 river ships, which gives us that flexibility to move gas very easily from ship to ship, as I mentioned, when we're dealing with water level changes. But we also offer, we have 6 ocean ships currently ready to sail. We have 2 more coming next year, so we'll be adding to our fleet there. With these ships, they're all small enough to sail right into the heart of the destination, and you're able, even on the ocean ships, to be able to step off and explore very closely from the ship without having to go on transfers or long distances to get to the center of the city. And that's one of the big advantages that were mentioned earlier, is that these rivers have been the highways for centuries, and all of the cities have started on the riverbanks and built outward. So when you come in by river, you're in the heart of the old city, exactly where you want to be. As I mentioned, green technology on all of our ships. We do adhere to the highest environmental standards, and we give you the 4 choices: river, ocean, Mississippi, and expedition. So we are taking you through the heart of the Americas, and also to Antarctic, Arctic, and also the Great Lakes. But one of the focuses for all of our product is about really immersing yourself in the destination. We do that through food. So traveling with us, you'll get to try all of the local specialties, whether that's the sauerbraten or the Wiener Schnitzel or the Black Forest cake. All of that is going to be available on our menus, but we do have a changing menu every day. We have choices for vegetarians. We can cater to most dietary needs. And we also have always available steak, Caesar salad, chicken, and salmon if you just need a little comfort food. But as I mentioned, cultural enrichment is the basis of our product. And we do this through onshore exploration. We send you and provide you with information prior to departure, because if you're like me, you like to learn a little bit before you go so you're prepared. We also have the onboard cultural curriculum, and we bring on local lecturers to talk about the art, the history, the culture, the current affairs. We bring on performers that share the cultural experiences, the musicians and the dancers. We take you to concerts and local cultural demonstrations. We have destination movies on board, cooking demonstrations. And in many places that we visit, we work closely with local communities that allow us to bring you into schools that we're working with, and well projects in Vietnam and Cambodia, so that you can also participate in some of the things that we're doing in the local communities to give back. And then our lectures, as I mentioned, really shed light on your destination. And we love to take you a little bit behind the scenes with our Viking way of exploration. So everything is built around this concept of the Viking way. How many of you, I'm sure, like me, love to look in people's houses when you travel, or maybe get to know the locals, or go to the market and learn how they eat, what they like to eat, how they shop, and what they like to cook. I love to take cooking classes if I can. I love to go to the market. And if I get a chance to meet the locals, I do. And we do this through our local life experience. Working World gives you insight into the economy and what makes that tick. And then our privileged access takes us behind the scenes. So you get an opportunity to kind of peek behind closed doors. So some of the things that we do, for example, along the rivers of Europe is you'll get a chance under local life to try the iconic spa in Budapest. That's where spas actually started. And the European spas are a bit different than the pampering spas that we have here in North America. They're more about taking the waters and improving the circulation, and they're medicinal, and they're based on hot springs that spring from the earth, particularly in and around Budapest. You can go and try an experience in a brew house and try a local German dinner with music and local beer. Our Working World experiences will take you in to one of the things like I did in France when I was in Bordeaux. I went to Cognac, the village of Cognac, and I learned all about the brandy industry. And I got to go to the very famous distillery, the privately owned, family-owned distillery Camus. And we got to work with a brandy sommelier to learn and taste some of the vintage brandies, learn about blending, and then create our own blend and bottle it and bring it home with us. So those are Working World experiences that taught me about the economy of the area, but also I got some personal experience as well. And then privileged access. If you like me, you like music. And one of the things I love to do when I go to Vienna is see the Viennese Boys Choir. And we work closely with them as a patron, and that allows us to not just take you to the concert, but pull back the curtain and let you go into their residence and meet them, chat with them, and sit in on a rehearsal. So these are some of the experiences you can expect traveling with Viking. Now, I also wanted to mention what we include. I talked about that before. There's not a lot of surprises. We include a shore excursion in each port of call, of course, your meals. We include alternate restaurants. We've got casual dining, al fresco on our Aquavit terrace, and also our more formal dining room. Beer, wine, and soft drinks are included with meals. We have sparkling wine for breakfast, and specialty coffees are available at our 24-hour self-serve coffee tea and cappuccino bar, bottled water, Wi-Fi, in-room entertainment. All of the extras are included, so there's no surprises. What we don't include and can be pre-arranged are gratuities, which are discretionary. We have optional tours that are available to take you deeper into the experience and more immersion if you want. And we also don't include soft drinks and alcohol between meals, mostly because our guests are off the ship during the day and we don't want to charge you for things you're not using. We do have a beverage package if you want to add that, but we also have a no corkage policy. So we actually encourage you to try local, bring on local beer, bring on local wines. You can bring some duty-free if you like, and you can take your drinks and pour your drinks and your bottles of wine anywhere on the ship, and there are no additional charges. So we're all about you experiencing and being treated like adults and enjoying that experience. So this is your home away from home. These are our beautiful ships. You can see they're narrow and kind of low. The reason they are is because we have to cross under a number of old stone bridges that have been along those rivers for centuries. And we also have to squeeze through those locks in the Main-Danube Canal that takes us up over the Alps or the continental divide of Europe and down the other side. It's about 1,500 feet of lock system that takes you up and over. So the ships have to be narrow enough to get into those locks. So let's take a quick look. You can see our aquavit terrace at the bow. We've got lots of deck space, lots of big windows. And we've designed our ships with Scandinavian design because we are Vikings. And the family that owns the company is from Norway. And we love that Scandinavian aesthetic with the natural stone and wood and bright, airy windows and skylights to bring that outdoor experience in and the destination to you. This is our lobby area. You can see bright and airy. One thing to note, I wanted to mention, you can see that window on the left-hand side. That is a sliding door that goes, that opens out onto our deck and then would technically be going off the ship. But river ships along the rivers of Europe do often dock side by side. So what you're seeing there is one of our sister ships docked beside our ship. So I always like to tell people that because sometimes if you've had the experience like I have where you flung open your windows early one morning and all of a sudden there's someone in the ship next to you looking back and you realize that you have double docked. So just be aware that that does happen in busy ports, and we do own a lot of docking locations, so we're able to dock very close, usually the first or the second ship, but you may have to pass through ships, or now with COVID, we may be forced to go up and over instead of through. Now you can see this is the lobby area, very close to that first photo that I showed you, and you can see the windows on either side. Those are the doors that go in or onto shore, depending on what side we docked. At the top of the stairs are our coffee bars. Here is our beautiful dining room, floor-to-ceiling windows, and open dining, so you'll be able to share your experiences with new people if you like every single day, and we do offer a wide menu. We also have our beautiful aquavit lounge with a dance floor, some live music. We've got lots of space for people to spread out and big picture windows, as you can see, along the ship and easing out into the aquavit terrace area where you can dine al fresco for continental breakfast or just cozy up in one of those rocking chairs and read a book, as I've done as I've sailed down the river, enjoying the beautiful scenery. The staterooms are also wide open. We have a range of staterooms from our standard with a higher window that doesn't open on our lower deck to these French balconies and balconies with sliding glass doors with full step out, as well as our 2-room suites. So let's take a look at our destinations. I wanted to give you some highlights as we go, but as I always like to show a map, and I know Edward showed this a map similar to this, but this really gives you a sense of where the rivers flow through the heart of Europe. You can sail from the North Sea down the Rhine River. This is the Main-Danube Canal system that goes over the continental divide of Europe and then connects with the Danube that takes you all the way down to the Black Sea. Now, Viking does have a wide variety of itineraries that are part of that river system, but we also travel to France and Portugal, We go to Ukraine, we go up into Russia, we go to Vietnam, Cambodia, China, and also to Egypt. So my focus today is going to be on the central part of Europe, starting with our most popular itinerary, the Grand European. This is one of my all-time favorite itineraries, 15 days, 12 guided tours in four countries, and it really gives you a sense of Europe. If you've been to Europe, you may not have been to some of these little towns. If you haven't, this is the perfect intro. So we've got the iconic cities, Amsterdam, Cologne, Vienna, Budapest. We've got the little medieval towns of Miltenberg and Würzburg and Bamberg and Passau, as well as music and art and culture and great food as we travel along. So just some highlights. Amsterdam, I always recommend to people to start here. Give this a try. You can sail along the canals, you can bike along the canals, you can walk. You can visit some of the best museums in the world, like the Rijksmuseum and Van Gogh Museum for Art, and Frank House if you're looking for history, and you can walk in the footsteps of Anne Frank as well, with some amazing guides and walking tours. Great food, and also wonderful shopping. We also visit Cologne, and Cologne is known for this beautiful cathedral. We dock right here. You can see where that bridge is. Our docking location is very close to there, and you literally can walk up the street, and you're in the heart of Old Cologne at the plaza around the cathedral. The cathedral is one of the only buildings that wasn't destroyed or damaged in the World War II Allied bombing. And it was a beacon. They used it as a beacon for the bombings from Britain into Germany. It was a turning point for many of them to get off into different areas. So the building was protected, and it now is a beautiful 1,000-year-old cathedral. We'll do some walking tours. It's built on the top of a Roman city called Colony, I think, as Edward mentioned. And this is a wonderful city for exploring. Just across the street is the restored medieval part, where there's lots of little wine bars and beer gardens. So it's a fun thing to do in the evening, to go and do a little bit of a pub crawl, or try the Cologne evening, where you can go and try the food and the beer and enjoy some of the Bavarian or the German music. But a wonderful city for exploring. And a little piece of trivia for you. You might recognize the name Cologne. This is the place where perfume, or eau de cologne, we still call it that, was invented. So you can go and learn all about that as well. We visit Passau, which is a fantastic little medieval village that sits between three rivers, the Ill, the Inns, and the Danube. And they say that if you get up high enough and look down, it's the right time of the season, you will see that this is where you'll see the three different colors of the river, and this is where the Danube becomes the Blue Danube. It also is a place where those three rivers come together, and it creates some of the highest, the extremes in terms of tracking water levels. And if you go to the city hall, you will see the levels of the high water marks over the centuries. But it's also known for something else. In that beautiful cathedral you see there, St. Stephen's Cathedral, is the largest pipe organ in Europe, and we do a wonderful concert there. But it's a great city for exploring, with lots and lots of history. I've done biking trips out of here. There's lots of walking. You can just go and enjoy the atmosphere. We also visit Vienna, which is a wonderful city, one of my favorites in Europe. And this is the Hofburg Palace that is right in the center of Old Vienna, wrapped by the Ringstrasse, which used to be the moat around the old city. This is in the heart of the old part, and you can see just in front of those doors, just past the statue, is actually an excavation to the old Roman city as well. So this is a very old part of the Roman Empire, and has expanded. And actually, the rulers were called emperors, even up through the Austro-Hungarian Empire. It was the center. Now, the Hofburg Palace now is no longer a palace. It is the home of wonderful art galleries and museums, but it's also the home of the Viennese Boys Choir and the Lippizan Stallions. So you can enjoy the city. It's known for the music of Mozart and Beethoven and Strauss. You can attend a concert as an optional tour. You can also go and enjoy the amazing apple strudel and Wiener Schnitzel and bratwurst here. You must sit in the coffee houses and try some of the specialties of the area. It is part of the culture. And then on to Budapest, which is a beautiful, beautiful city. You're looking at the Parliament buildings. We dock very nearby. It has the Buda Castle. It's a city that has come together in the 1700s. Originally two cities, Buda and Pest, and the Danube splits the two cities. It's now a joined city, with Pest being the younger side and Buda being the older side, but a wonderful city for exploration, and you will get a chance to enjoy the market and learn about the history, as well as to enjoy some of the Hungarian culture. So I also wanted to touch on France very quickly. We've put two beautiful itineraries together, one that goes up into northern France and one that goes into southern France, and we put them together with the train. They can be done separately, but we do sail from Paris up the Seine to Rouen and onward to the Normandy beaches, and then come back to Paris, joined by train to Lyon, which is the culinary and Beaujolais and Burgundy wine area, down through the little villages that are known for the Roman ruins, and onward to Avignon and Arles. So we will start off in Paris. We dock very close to the Eiffel Tower, so stepping off and being in the heart of Paris is absolutely possible. You've got the Arc de Triomphe. We will get a chance to tour and have some free time to explore, because we do stay overnight and a full day there and then come back in the evening. We travel on to Rouen, which is a beautiful 11th century town where Joan of Arc was condemned and burned at the stake, right here in this market square. So we'll learn about the medieval history here in Rouen, but the key draw is the Normandy beaches. This is where the British, the Canadians, and the Americans landed to start the liberation of Europe on D-Day. So in 1944, so you will get a chance to, as a Canadian, to visit the Commonwealth cemeteries and do the Commonwealth tour, or if you're from the US and prefer to explore the Omaha Beach memorials, you'll be able to do that. They are a little bit different. I love the Canadian ones because I'm Canadian, and obviously I find them a little bit smaller and more personal. The wow factor is at Omaha Beach when you see 10,000 white crosses. You really feel the impact, but you feel the personal impact when you visit the Canadian cemeteries. So you will have that opportunity. From there, we go on to Lyon, and just outside, of course, is Beaujolais and Burgundy. And here is the vineyards of Moulin à Vent. And for those of you who have maybe tried that wine, it's famous. You'll see the windmill on the labels of many of them, but you'll get a chance to do some wine tasting. And of course, Lyon is the center of the culinary world for France, with many of the great chefs with incredible restaurants here. And then onward to the southern part of France into Avignon. You see the old bridge that we spoke about. You can see the Pope's Palace. And for 200 years there, the Vatican was here in Avignon. And just outside, several of the popes moved out to a little village called Châteauneuf-du-Pape, and that is called the Chateaux of the Popes. And they set up vineyards to create the communion wine. So we all recognize Châteauneuf-du-Pape as being one of the wonderful red wines from this area, and you can go and visit that as well. But it's a beautiful city behind walls and a great place to explore. If you love wine and food, Chateaux, Rivers, and Wines to the Bordeaux area that Edward mentioned is available for you. We also are visiting Portugal. So if you love the Portuguese port, very famous, you can explore a little bit of Lisbon and then go onward to the Douro River and do some tasting and cruise into Salamanca, Spain, and back along the Douro River, visiting places like Regua, which is the home of the Matus Palace, which many of us might recognize from our youth, and then back to Porto. We also visit Russia. This is where we started. We started with 5 ships in Russia. We've remained there. We own our ships. We're the only company who does that. And if you're interested in the art, the history, the culture, the music of Russia, or just curious about what's behind that Iron Curtain, this is a fantastic itinerary. I've done it by Baltic cruise, but I've also done the river cruise. And I always say to people, visiting Russia by river cruise is like going to the chocolate shop and standing outside and just looking in the window if you're on a Baltic cruise, and going into the store and trying all the chocolates if you're on a river cruise. It gives you the freedom. You do have to have a visa, but it gives you a freedom to really get out there and explore. We also have some highlights here, 3.5 days in Moscow, 3.5 days in St. Petersburg. We have our, this is the St. Basil's Cathedral in Red Square. And here you've got Tomb of Lenin, you've got the Cosmonaut Museum, we've got music. We visit some of the little villages like Uglitch, which are the center of the Golden Ring cities with the art, the history, the culture, the music being preserved, and also the restoration of many of these beautiful old Russian Orthodox churches. Many of them were used as silos for grain and armaments during the communist era, and they're now being restored to their previous glory with the beautiful icons on the inside. Here we also get a chance to visit with one of the local families. This is Babushka Nadia, and she loves to invite our guests into her home to share her homemade vodka. She has a still behind her house, and some of the local treats from the area and from her garden. So that's one of the things that I loved. It was getting to know some of the local families. You'll also get a chance to visit Mandrogi, which is an artist colony and center where you can see some of the beautiful art pieces being created, and also have a chance maybe to create your own Matryoshka doll, nesting doll in one of the art workshops that we offer. And then of course we end up in St. Petersburg. This is the Winter Palace, the Hermitage, which is the largest art gallery in the world with over 6 million pieces of art. We also visit the ballet, and the city itself built on a series of canals, not unlike our beautiful city of Venice. So those are some of the highlights. If you're looking further afield, we've got Egypt, and you can check in with the team from Merit Travel, and they will give you a little bit more detail, but we are seeing a resurgence of interest in the history of Egypt and going back into that area. So Edward, I am, hopefully that's teased people a little bit about the wonderful rivers of Europe and some of the great places to visit. And I'm going to turn it over to you to see if there's any questions that we can answer.
Yes, actually, there's a lot of questions. We had tons of great questions, so I'm just going to start
okay, great.
at the top. One of the questions is, what are your single supplements? Do you have a single supplement?
That's a very good question. We do have 2 ships actually that sail along the Danube that have single staterooms. So that's what I recommend for people. The Viking Legend, the Viking Prestige have 6 solo staterooms that are exclusive and with special pricing. But otherwise, we do offer solo stateroom rates, usually within a year or within the year of travel, more as a top up. These ships are small. There are 85 staterooms. And so we don't often offer a reduced single rate too far out because the majority of the staterooms are built for 2. So it's often 200%. So what I recommend is stay in touch with the Merit team. They will let you know if there are solo rates available within our sailing year, but also check out those 2 ships, the Viking Prestige, the Viking Legend on the Danube Waltz, going from Passau to Budapest. And they do have those solo staterooms you can book well in advance.
And Kim, just to interject, are there any triple rooms on riverboats?
No, they're too small for triples. And we're very focused on you know, our clients are not traveling with families. We don't cater to guests under 19 years old. It's an adult focused experience. So we don't really have places for, or a need for triples.
Great, thanks.
And what about inside cabins? Do you have any?
No such thing as inside staterooms on river ships. The lowest deck has a picture. Well, it's a large window, but it's set up a little bit higher in the wall. But that we do not have any inside staterooms.
I think those are called, technically they're called swan view rooms.
Yes, that's my favorite term. Call them swan view rooms because the first time I ever opened up on my very first cruise, because that's usually where I end up, I opened up the curtains and I was looking eyeball to eyeball with the beautiful swans that were sailing past. So it is closer to the waterline, but it is a very, because I'm a bit of a nautical geek, I loved being there in a lot of ways because I could see the intricacies of the river that you never get to see, even from a kayak. So it was kind of cool.
And you mentioned too about the the engines on the ship, like they're literally, I was in one of those rooms on Viking and there's literally no vibration whatsoever.
Mm-mm.
Could never really tell that, you're on a boat, to be honest.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
That's actually good to know because I've been on a river cruise and I've heard that the people in the bottom section could really hear the engines a lot. Like it was disturbingly loud. So it's good to know.
Yeah, ours are hybrid
Same.
engines, and we have those on all of our vessels, our river ocean vessels as well. And it does reduce the vibration and reduces the noise. Now, I will tell you though, that when we go into locks in the middle of the night, because we're working with like 6-inch clearance on either side, there may be some bumping. So if you're a light sleeper, you are probably going to hear it and possibly wake up. I sleep through trains, so it never bothers me. But for some people that are light sleepers, you may want to choose a room that's a little bit higher up.
That's a good point.
The next question. Will Viking be reducing the number of passengers on their ships to increase physical distancing?
You know what? That's a really good question. And we are waiting for the regulations to come out from the WHO and from CDC. And we will be doing whatever is necessary to make people feel safe. We don't have a policy out yet because we don't know what's expected. It's just like you've been in Vancouver and they've been changing the rules with the restaurants. It's a bit of a wait and see right now, but we will be adhering to whatever's required. I will say one thing though, despite some of the media reports, cruising and river cruising is a very safe environment. They are cleaning constantly. And the only reason that they have a little bit more visibility is that this is the only industry that's required to report to the CDC. No other industry, whether it's a hotel or a resort, has that requirement. So it's just much more visible. We clean constantly. We have hand washing stations in all of our ships at the entrance to all of our restaurants. And I don't mean just the sanitation gel. We have actual hand washing stations with soap and water. So we have already been prepared and taken these precautions long before COVID, and we will certainly be adhering to whatever. But the advantage with river cruising is it's small numbers, and we go in small groups already on our tours. We have audio box systems to tour with, which means those are wireless connections to the guide. So it's easy to be socially distanced even on the walking tours. So I rest assured that we are going to be doing whatever's necessary to create a safe environment.
Good to know. This is a destination question with regards to the Cologne Cathedral.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Cologne Cathedral now done with renovations? Can you go inside? Is there scaffolding?
I was there last year, actually, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it's completely open. You can go up on the roof as well, which I did. It's kind of an interesting walk up the turret. But yeah, no, the cathedral is definitely open. I don't recall, to be honest with you, whether there's scaffolding around it still, but it's definitely open.
I will say one thing. When I was doing my last tour with the cathedral, one of the things that the guide said is that this is the cathedral is guaranteed for perpetual employment because it's constantly under renovation. They're constantly, cleaning and scrubbing. And so it's just like any buildings in and around Europe, there's going to be constant upgrade going on, but you can go right inside. It's beautifully clean and white now and fantastic.
And like you said, it's literally about a 5-minute walk from the ship.
Yeah.
It's so close.
Are the ships wheelchair accessible?
We do have elevators on, but it's not so much the ships, it's the access once you get off the ships. These are small towns that date back to the 11th and 12th century with cobblestone streets and not a lot of ramps. So if you have a collapsible wheelchair, you can certainly use it. But if you're fully requiring a wheelchair 24/7, it's not the right choice. It's just because of the accessibility in the places that we visit. We do have elevators on board. So if you need a walker or you need assistance or you have a collapsible wheelchair, you can use it. But remember, these rooms are not large. The ships are not super wide. And it's just, it's a very different kind of experience to an ocean ship with more space and a more, they can equip differently. So I just say that if you are mobile and you've got someone that can help you, your biggest challenge is going to be getting on and off the gangways because of the water levels, and also the cobblestone streets and the lack of ramps when you get into some of those ports of call.
Thank you. And if somebody wanted to see all the prices for each trip, how would they do that, Edward?
Well, you could go on to cruiseexpertstravel.com, and there's ways of searching on Viking rivers, Viking oceans, various nations or cities or countries, and you know, it's quite simple to do it that way. You could also go on Viking's website. Both sites have pricing. Our pricing may not be as current, and our pricing will be in U.S. currency. Viking's site will show the currency that you reside in. So if you're in the United States, you'll bring up U.S. pricing. If you're in Canada, you'll bring up Canadian pricing.
Is there tea time and a sea day brunch?
On the river ships? Well, we do have afternoon tea and snacks available, but a seaside brunch, it's hard to say. We actually arrive in the ports of call usually around 5 o'clock in the morning, and often we don't sail until late. So most of the time people are off the ship, but we do have food. We have breakfast, lunch, dinner. We have afternoon kind of tea, snacks, and we also have our 24-hour self-serve coffee, tea, and cappuccino bar. So there's always snacks available there, some of the local pastries and cookies and fruit and SodaStream, etc. But I will say that for the most part, people are off the ship most of the day. So it's a little bit of a different experience than an ocean, in that you're not at sea. When we do sail along the river, it's usually for 2 or 3 hours, and people are out on deck. But I don't think you'll go hungry if you're worried about that.
There is some great opportunities for scenic river cruising, and that Rhine Valley with all the castles is certainly one of them. And Viking, definitely make sure that you're going through there during the daytime so you can see it. Obviously weather dependent, but if you have good weather, it's a phenomenal area to go through. Also, you know, the Wachau Valley in Austria is also quite scenic. So there are scenic cruising opportunities, but not so much as there is on an ocean vessel.
And this is the last question, which kind of relates to pricing, but does all-inclusive include the cost of flights?
That's a very good question. We do separate our cruise price from our air price when you're looking at our sites. We do often offer free air, which would be part of a promotional promotion that we're running. But we do it that way because a lot of our guests want to use their points. Many of them are staying longer or going earlier. They're visiting family and they want to go to Britain before they go on to a river cruise. So we like to give people flexibility. But we do, with our air program with Viking, you can deviate, you can extend. There are some fees attached that the airlines pass on to us, but if you check with your Merit Travel agent, they can give you all the details. We try to make it flexible for you. We do our best to kind of make it your trip.
Just as a point, though, in these times of uncertainty, it's always good to have your flights with the supplier, whether it's Viking or whomever, just because it makes it a little bit cleaner package in case there are delays or you know, unfortunately cancellations and stuff. So something to consider going forward in terms of travel is just to have everything all with a supplier like Viking, who will take care of you if things do go askew a bit.
That's all the questions.
Great.
All right.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me today. I really, I'm passionate about river cruising, and it's really fun to talk to people. And I'm seeing some of the comments, and thank you for joining us from my point of view. And I'm very intrigued that so many of you are coming from all over the world. It's so exciting to see the chat and seeing how many of you are in other places like Romania and Sarajevo, and it's fascinating.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Kim, for putting on the presentation. We really appreciate your support of our company throughout the good times as well as some of the challenges we've had over the last few months, and we continue to look forward to doing business with you in the future.
Well, great.
Thanks,
Well, thank you so much. I'm going to pass this, just click through, and I'm going to stop sharing and turn this back to you.
Thanks, everybody, and see you in 2 weeks when we have our next virtual travel talk. Goodbye.
Thanks, everybody.